Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, we'll talk about a violent night in Louisville and hear from a reporter who saw it all unfold. And the KHSAA works on its plans for young athletes. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome to Hey, Kentucky. LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer is alongside tonight. Happy Friday, Keith.
Yes, one that we all need right now.
Yeah, I really think so. Across the entire country, it has been a tense week, and that includes right here in Kentucky with the city of Louisville erupting in violence last night. 7 people were shot during a downtown protest, which was triggered by the Breonna Taylor shooting death and other headlines. Police made several arrests while saying that no officers fired their weapons. All those involved in the violence were civilians. Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher issued a call for peaceful protest and says LMPD's use of no-knock warrants is suspended until further notice. The Louisville unrest comes during a week filled with similar scenes in Minneapolis, where protesters are angered by the death of George Floyd while in police custody. The officer involved has been arrested on murder and manslaughter charges. Keith, one of the 4 officers that were fired has now been charged. And I think people in Louisville are waiting to see if there will be charges filed in the Taylor case.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't understand the no-knock raid. I mean, that one just to me signifies that, something could happen to a police officer when you just rush into somebody's home like that. And obviously this was the case. And as we've talked about it before, the person that they were looking for was already apprehended. And so there was really no need to even go in there. So there is a lot of answering to be done in this case.
Yes, and I know in Minneapolis, we all saw the video. So I think even though it's only been a few days, there were questions as to why that officer hadn't been arrested sooner. Meanwhile, audio of the 911 call from the night Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by police has been released. In the audio, Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, told dispatchers that he didn't think Taylor was breathing. At one point, Walker also said, quote, "Somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend." Walker was jailed for 2 weeks but released on home incarceration March 27th. He was initially charged with attempted murder of a police officer, but prosecutors announced last week they would not pursue the case. Here's a clip of that 911 call and a warning that you may find it disturbing.
Brittany.
You said 26. Where was she shot at?
I don't know. She's on the grill right now. I don't know.
Is she alert and able to talk to you?
No, Brittany.
Okay.
One of the officers serving the warrant, Sergeant John Mattingly, has recovered after being shot. Keith, just hearing that certainly makes you understand why charges were dropped against Kenneth Walker, because he does not sound like he even knew it was the police.
No, and I'm trying to remember myself. I mean, obviously he was in his home. I wanted to say he was in bed. But he was definitely in his home, in their home. And, somebody comes in, he thinks it's a robber. So he's naturally going to do what he can to protect himself and Breonna. So that was his thought process, what was going on. So certainly no reason at all that he should have been charged in any case. So glad that he was not.
Yes. All right. Turning to the pandemic, there's actually some encouraging news concerning Kentucky's reopening schedule. Since we've been flattening the curve, the governor has announced that Kentucky Kingdom will reopen on June 29th with a limited number of guests. He also announced that the state is looking at reopening public pools that same week, but they're still working out the details on exactly what that will look like. And all state parks, including Lake Cumberland, will be allowed to reopen Monday, June 1st. That is a good thing, Keith. All the state parks can open up. The public pools, the only issue is, as we've learned, it takes about 6 weeks to get those up and going. So if you want them ready, we got to make a decision quick.
It's going to have to be made quick here in Lexington. It's just good to know that all that work through the winter months and everything on the dad bod, it's maybe going to work out. I mean, maybe we'll actually get to go to some lakes, pools, Kentucky Kingdom, and enjoy ourselves.
If you go to Kentucky Kingdom, though, wear your shirt, Keith. Just do it. All right. KHSAA officials have met to discuss how to move forward with youth sports in Kentucky. Since the pandemic created an early dead period, the KHSAA is dropping the official one, which had been scheduled for June 15th to July 9th. Starting June 1st and continuing through the 14th, coaches can start to hold meetings with 10 or fewer people, but no practices. If a school has all of its PPEs in place, they may begin limited workouts on June 15th. High-contact sports like football, soccer, and volleyball can begin workouts, while low-contact sports like cross-country and golf can begin practicing. July 10th is the next big date when helmet-only practices can begin, and July 15th when many other practices for fall sports are scheduled to begin. And Keith, this was all done under the advisement of what health officials and government officials had told the KHSAA.
Yeah, KHSAA said, look, we can't make our own decisions. We're going by what the government and CDC says, so we're following what they want to do. I think it was a wise decision, and there was a lot of discussion that went on with the Board of Control about whether these are voluntary and how do you get kids to these practices, how many do you have, and whether or not to actually get rid of that dead period that was scheduled, the annual dead period. And I thought it was smart to do. They got about 2 weeks there to get all their PPEs in place and figure out how to do this thing the right way.
That's right. All right. True Blue fans have been curious about redshirt freshman Donte Allen and his return to the floor following his torn ACL that he suffered that senior year of high school. He kept him out all of last season. Now new video provides the first major update on the Pendleton County Star. KSR posted exclusive footage of Allen's private workouts in northern Kentucky this offseason, where the 6'6" guard is looking ready to go for 2020. Allen is working out twice a week with the coaching and training staff at Griffin Elite Sports and Wellness, along with some hands-on help from Cincinnati associate head coach Larry Davis. Keith, I hate to admit it, but Donte Allen is often the guy that I forget about on this roster, and he could really do great things.
I'm telling you, he's a scorer, flat scorer, and he's a tall kid for a point guard. I'm sure that's where they would play him, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I did get to see him a little bit in his junior and early part of his senior year before he got the injury. And it's a tough one to come back from, but we're seeing a lot of people being very successful coming back from those ACL injuries. So this is great video to see out of Donte.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching him play. All right, now in Hey Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. The COVID-19 crisis will likely have a long-lasting impact on nursing homes. In Kentucky, more than half of all coronavirus deaths have come from residents and staff in long-term care facilities, even though the state acted early. Meanwhile, Governor Beshear says the state plans to reopen and operate a privately owned prison to shift inmates from overcrowded county jails. The state will lease the Floyd County facility, but will operate it as a state prison housing male inmates. And the governor's office is reviewing a proposal from a state fair board for a plan to hold the event in August with smaller crowds, mask requirements, and some fairgoers and reduced hours. All right, up next on Hey Kentucky, a different perspective on last night's violence in Louisville. We'll talk to a Courier-Journal reporter who witnessed the intense scenes firsthand when we return.